spring, well, first of the summer, probably next year. Just as well work through the winter.
Yeah.
Can't do anything else.
Nope.
Of course, it's miserable up there in the winter.
Yeah, I'll bet.
We
How's
have
your
had,
family? Everybody doing good?
yeah, yep. So
Good.
far, how about you?
Yep, good.
We have had a bodacious year.
Yeah, first of the summer, probably next year. Just as well work through the winter.
Yeah.
Can't believe how much powder we've shipped.
Of course, it's miserable up there.
Thanks for clearing me up on that, Ray. I was a little confused.
Yep.
What did you say? It was November of 2019?
Yes, November 14th of 2019.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Did you already start the meeting?
Yes.
You did?
Yes.
Just now?
A minute ago,
Oh.
so I could get the YouTube up and going.
Oh, yeah. 'Cause
Before.
mine said, I logged in and it showed to start the meeting. So if you already started it, I'll just.
Okay,
Go back again.
we're still getting people in.
Hey, Eric, how are you?
You're muted, Eric.
You must be muted, Eric. There you go.
I was. I'm trying to get my head wrapped around this. We've been busy, crazy busy, man.
Yeah, I can't believe the plant up there, the cement plant. It's going to be the best year we've ever had as far as shipments is concerned.
I'll tell you what, with our business this year, we've doubled business this year with COVID. Absolutely crazy.
Yeah, we will. We'll have the best year probably ever as far as total shipments is concerned. It's nuts.
Yeah,
It just keeps going.
it does. No signs of even slowing down. Even through all this COVID stuff, it just does not stop.
It doesn't make a lot of sense, does it?
No,
Back in March, I think everybody up the plant thought we were in dire straits. Are they going to be hurting? Now it's going to end up being best year ever. Crazy.
Yeah. The interesting thing is when COVID hit, we actually were considered essential employees. So we didn't even skip a beat.
Yeah, we were considered essential as well, so we didn't. But I just thought it would slow down some, but it didn't. No.
Mayor, I think we have everybody ready.
We're good?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Want to welcome everybody out tonight. Appreciate all of you joining us and appreciate your input and your thoughts on the process we have here at the city. As we do that, we'd like to have Eric, if Eric would lead us in a pledge. I don't know if Ty's able to put, Ty or Denise able to put the flag up. If Eric leads us in a pledge, I'd like to ask Jeff if he'd offer us the opening ceremony.
We'll wait for Ty to put the flag up and then we'll stand up. There we go. Everybody stand up. We'll repeat the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Which Jeff, Mayor?
Hey, Jeff was muted. We didn't hear what he was doing.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. Here we go.
Can you hear me now?
Good, Yep, we can.
Sorry
There you go.
about that. Am
You're
I
okay.
right, Jeff, or is it Jeffrey Richards?
Oh, if you would, Jeff.
Okay,
Thanks, Tony.
sorry about that.
No problem. Thanks, T.
All right, here we go. Our dear Father in heaven, we're grateful for this evening, Father in heaven, and grateful for the blessings that we have been blessed with here in this valley. We're grateful for the valley and this country we live in. We ask a blessing on us this evening that we'll make the right decisions as we go through the agenda of the council meeting for Morgan City. And we're grateful for these opportunities and say these things in the name of the Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Hopefully everybody caught that.
We did. It was great. Thank you, Jeff, and thank you, Eric, for opening those up.
You're welcome.
Now it's open up for either discussion on the minutes and warrants or a motion to approve.
Ty, I've just got one question. The Canyon collision repair expense, just wondering what that was for.
You're muted, Ty.
So Roe had a small accident in his truck where he drove over a rock, and it was for body repair. So he had some minor damage to underneath his truck. So, and then that's an insurance claim as well. So.
Okay, that was the second part of the question. Is that covered by insurance?
Yep.
Okay.
Hey,
Telling you
Mayor.
to watch out for rocks.
Yes, T.
So I just have a question on the warrant. $1,800 to small town GIS. Just a general question. How is that proceeding? I mean, how far along are we, and how much more do we?
So it's just a continual process. So it's just a monthly amount. We pay him and what happens is he does our parcel data. So he does it at the same time as the county. So as new lots get recorded and that sort of thing, then Small Town GIS does all of the parcel data. And then our engineers work with our guys to do the infrastructure. So, and we work off of the exact same system. And what we're working towards right now is different model where our guys have the ability to use handheld devices to update the infrastructure, with meters. Like if you switch out a meter or a valve or whatever, that they'd be able to update and correct those as they go, pull them up but we're not quite there yet. That's the next step. But the engineers, as we get new subdivisions and as they inspect the infrastructure and do the as-built, they upload it for us in our GIS, and then we'll be able to do that a little bit more remotely shortly. That's what we're kind of working on.
So small town GIS, it actually maintains. I mean, it's the living document, a work in progress, so to speak, I guess. Or
it's a lot better fit because he does the county parcel data at the same time. So as addresses and subdivisions and lot line adjustments happen, he updates that from the county records, and then he's able to update that for us as well. So our base maps, our zoning and that sort of thing is all done by him. And then the engineers take the detailed infrastructure part, and it's not viewable by the public, but our guys, they do have that ability on their phone when they're out looking at lines to find sewer lines, water lines, valves, and that sort of thing.
So that expense, Ty, so I probably should have asked this months ago. So where is that embedded in our budget?
So let me see where that one's coded to. I think it's under the community development, but let me look for sure. Yeah, so 10, 41. It's out of the general fund in the building department under professional and technical services.
Okay. All right. Just curious. Thank you.
Yep, you bet.
Appreciate the question. Any further questions?
I've got one for you, Mayor. Over on the West Coast Code Consultants with the Cobblestone Hotel, how's the hotel coming? And you know what is that West Coast? They're just coming in to help inspect the hotel.
Yep. So we that comes on our bill, and then we bill the entity the exact amount that gets charged for inspections. So West Coast is they do all of our commercial inspections. The hotel is about a month out. So they have their management team in place. They're getting trained right now. And then in about a week or two, they'll start a hiring process. They just have, I think he said they think that they're about 2 weeks from asking for the final inspections. And then they have to, of course, go through their process to get it up and running and get management in place and get people hired. So hopefully we're just about a month out.
Again, appreciate the questions. Any further questions? Or if you're ready for a motion.
Mayor, I'd move to approve the, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Dave.
Either way, we've already got a second, huh?
Yep.
All right. Move to approve the minutes of September 22nd council meeting and the warrants of the Morgan City from 9/22 to 10/22. Move to approve.
Second.
Tony seconded.
Yeah.
Moved by David, second by Tony. Move to approve the city council meeting minutes for September 22nd, 2020, and the one set of warrants as presented. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing none, proceed to vote. All in favor, raise your hand. Anybody opposed? Okay, motion passed unanimously. Approved. Thank you. Okay, Denise, do we have any public comments registered?
No, I didn't receive any, Mayor.
Okay, all right, we'll go on to item number 3 then. Item 3, resolution 2027. I'll have Ty take this and force the agreement between Morgan City, Morgan County, and Landmark Design Incorporated to update the general plan for Morgan City and Morgan County. I'd ask Ty to maybe explain the process and selection and where we're at this point. Okay. Ty, you're muted again.
Okay, thanks, Mayor. So this is our general plan update process that we've been talking about, and we budgeted for. We put out an RFP and got 3 responses. We evaluated them as a team, including the planner and one of the planning staff from the county council or county planning department, our planner, and then a couple of our people internally. And we went through and ranked and rated the applications based on the proposals, and this was our top applicant. We awarded or let them know they were the highest ranked, and then we've did this development agreement with Gary's help. Not development agreement, sorry. What do we call that agreement, Gary?
Sorry,
You're muted, Gary. There you go.
there we go. Technology is not my specialty. Yeah, it's essentially a contract for services. So
Yeah. So they're a really good company. If you look in your packet, we included a couple of the pages from their proposal. It was really well done. One of the things that we liked is the visual design elements that they bring to the table. They're a company that has landscape architects as well as planners on board. And then if you look at the budget, there's a page 22 in their proposal. that is detailed on who's going to spend how many hours on the project. And you can see it's Landmark Design, Lewis Young and Birmingham, and Y2 Analytics. Anyway, they put together a pretty robust team. You'll notice that their total bid price was $99,725. And so it came just under the $100,000 grant award that we had from UDOT, and that'll complete both the county and the city's plan. And then on page 23 of their proposal, they have a flow chart. We're already a little bit behind on the kickoff. We're supposed to have a kickoff meeting and then some virtual meetings with the entities just to get the project kicked off, but it should start basically in January after we've met internally to bring them up to speed and make sure we all agree to the path forward. So anyway, we're excited to get moving. We checked the references and we've heard really good things about Landmark Design, and I think that's where we're at.
A couple of pieces I'm aware of too is one day Nate McClellan was in the office and was apprised of this, and he commented that he's had some association with them in the past, and he really thought they were gave a positive report from his association in the past with them. And today indicated Rachel Turk, she actually was an employee of this company prior to, and she gave some positive responses as well as far as her past experience with them as an employee of that company. So there are a couple of local responses as well that have had prior experience with the company.
Besides the budget amount there, Ty, just briefly, what were and the references, what were some of the other considerations in choosing between the three?
So some of the criteria that we used was based on just the proposal itself and the detail and the approach. So it's hard to talk about this one without some of the other applicants that didn't get it, but one of the other applicants was mostly focused on making sure we hit the state code requirements. And this one, we kind of assume that anybody that does the plan should be able to meet the state code. And this one took it to a further level. They also do online, they did online involvement. So they don't have to schedule so many physical meetings to get participation and input. So it makes it pretty easy for people to participate. And then all of them, had different outcomes or outputs, but really like the way that they're able to demonstrate the visuals that they'll put to their product. And so I don't know if that answers your question specifically, but that's kind of what set them apart from some of the other.
Yeah, I think one of the keys, and we've talked about it before, is involving the public and the public input. And to read through their process, they seem fairly robust in that regard. I felt good about that.
Yep, that was one of the highlights. Yeah.
Yeah.
Other questions or thoughts or a motion?
I've got just on the agreement just a technical item. The Landmark Design we need to complete the address on this on page 2. Got 850 South 400. There'd probably be an east or a west on that. Right in the middle of the page.
Item 8A.
Correct.
On page 2.
I'll look that up and fix that.
Yeah, just a simple fix.
This is supposed to be completed by December 31st of next year, correct?
Yep.
Well, hey, Ty, one other question. It seemed like we were on our part, between us and the county, we were going to put some money towards this also. Do we still need to do that where it's coming in less than maybe we originally anticipated?
Yeah, so the grant requires a match. So we still have to contribute to that. So if it's a soft match, meaning our time and our effort, we still need to track that for the 100,000.
Okay.
And
So our
then,
match would be half of the 99.
yeah, it'll be included and doesn't necessarily have to be out of pocket, but then the part that we budgeted for was also on the back end is I have the ability to add basically change orders to the contract that we have. And if we like how things are going and we like the product, then we can say, we'd like a more detailed parks plan, or I'd like to develop a more detailed trails plan, or could you, you suggested, a different zone that we don't currently have. Could you draft us some ordinances and things like that we could look at to adopt with the general plan? So we put buffer in the budget, one, just to make sure we had enough for the contract that's in place, but then without committing to it right now, there's potential that we could add to it on the back end and get more bang for our buck while we have somebody on board.
So the agreement is between us and Landmark. How does the county factor into that?
So the county just participates, and they also have, they will give us expenses for their matching requirement.
Okay.
So just to account for the grant, but we needed a lead applicant, which was the city, to be responsible for the reimbursement process and also take the award of the grant. So the county didn't receive the money. They didn't receive 100,000. And so they don't necessarily have to account for it, but they're partners in it. So they'll be giving me their portion of match money for our grant reports.
So the grant requires a 50% grant, you say?
No, we committed 40,000 total in match.
Okay.
So between us and the county.
So would we divide that in half? We'd pay 20 and they'd pay 20?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's a reporting requirement. It's not necessarily that we're going to be spending an extra $20,000 or $40,000. We're just going to keep track of expenses that we do pay. So staff time and, if we have printing costs or public notice things that we pay for along the way, that sort of thing. So
just maybe on the legal side, Gary, do we need any agreement between us and the county and how we proceed?
So I can't remember. The county is not a party to this, right, Ty?
So there's nothing in the county that makes us, we can go through the process ourselves, and there's nothing that puts us at risk at not getting our plan. If the county's participation falls off or they don't have their match requirement or something like that, they just don't end up with a final product. But it doesn't keep us from moving forward and fulfilling the contractual obligation, if that makes sense.
So then we would be responsible for the full 40,000 in match, which could be in kind, partially in kind. I'd imagine you'd make that up with planning and staff time anyway, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So,
but they're, they didn't sign on the award document, but they're also not, it's all kind of in our hands and in our control. So I feel better about being the applicant, receiving the money and doing the reporting ourselves. And they'll definitely get to participate and also get their plan updated. But if something goes haywire where they pull out, then there's very little risk to us.
And the grant was intended for us and the county also.
Correct. Mhm. Yeah, so it's one of the reasons we qualified is because we were willing to cooperate and coordinate our efforts between the two, because
I
we
remember
have
that.
joint interests in development. And anyway, so we're headed down the same road, and I think there's support from the county on it. So
Thank you.
mhm.
Any further questions or clarification, or somebody ready for a motion?
Mayor, I'll make the motion to adopt and approve Resolution 2027, a resolution adopting and approving an agreement between Morgan City and Landmark Design Incorporated to update the Morgan City and Morgan County General.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion by Jeffrey, second by Tony. We adopt resolution 2027, a resolution adopting and approving an agreement between Morgan City and Landmark Design Incorporated to update the Morgan City and Morgan County General Plan. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, see no, proceed to vote. The resolution will go by roll call vote. Either unmute yourself and say yes, or raise your hand, which you're most comfortable. Jeff. Okay, Tony.
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
David.
Aye.
And Jeffrey.
Aye.
Okay. Motion passed unanimously. Thank you. Appreciate the discussion on that and the thoughts. If you have further questions or thoughts, please respond to Ty. I think this will be a project that if we all can give input into and make it one that's valuable and useful in the future. So those of you that have crystal balls, shine them up and get them out for this project.
Absolutely.
Okay, item number 4, resolution 2028. Adjustment of the participants' entitlement share under the carbon-free power project power sales contract for remaining first phase licensing period for the carbon-free power project CFPP. Okay, so that's the discussion. A while back, we talked about having to pass that or decline. That's been brought before us again. So the question tonight, I'll let Ty talk in just a minute. The question tonight is, as far as our involvement in the power project, that carbon-free power project, do we want to maintain where we're at, continue with our current level? Do we want to bail out completely? Do we want to add more to it, decrease? We have those 4 options to consider tonight. You say the same, increase, decrease, or bail. And so let Ty talk to that for just a minute. Gary's been heavily involved in this as well. Gary and Ty have been working with UAMPS, with Mason, who's UAMPS lawyer, to put this together. So Gary can have some input as well on this. I'll let Ty lead off, and then please ask questions you may have about the carbon-free project. We're talking about some of the changes that have happened in the last couple months.
Okay, so yeah, I think we originally brought this up in July. That's when our the window opened to they call it an off ramp, but change your prescription or subscription level. I introduced it. We waited for it to come back on the agenda, but there was a lot of different things going in the works at the time. One was a DOE, so Department of Energy commitment to the project. We talked about subscription risk. We had, and when I say we, I'm talking about the project management committee at UAMPS. So I'm a part of that as our representative. And as those discussions started, we also had a couple of the entities decide to withdraw from the project, which started some concerns. So what we did is we all voted to extend that original deadline to October, and we landed on October 31st. So on October 31st, the window closes. If we don't do anything, then we're in the project by default at the level that we were subscribed before. And if we want to change our entitlement share, now is the time to do that. There's been a lot of work done and real positive movements. Most of my concerns have been addressed along the way. I'll tell you, if we didn't have the DOE agreement in place, that was a real risk to the project, and I wasn't comfortable moving forward, spending any money, hoping that that agreement would come together at some point. That has been finalized. The Department of Energy came in at $1.355 billion towards the project, which is significant. And they also put more of the money, instead of spreading the money over the 10 years equally, they loaded the money more heavily in the first 5 years, which is right now where the project is maybe a little bit more risky. The next thing that was a big concern was the overall subscription. We talk a lot about who's in the project, who's not in the project as far as UAMPS, but in reality, we're a small portion of the entire project. We're a small entity, and we know that. We're just spearheading the project and looking for other entities that are interested in joining the project as it develops. It's still kind of early on, and a lot of people are just now trying to figure out what to do with their base load as people get more stringent on fossil fuels for energy. What UAMPS did is they created an LLC that the project will now be owned by an LLC outside of UAMPS, which allows other people to subscribe. So one of the barriers to other people entering the project is all of our other UAMPS projects is you have to be a member of UAMPS in order to participate or have ownership in one of our projects. We've had people like small entities join UAMPS in order to be part of this project, like Salmon River and Los Alamos, I think, joined for the carbon-free power project. But anyway, by having it, they set up an LLC that will own the project. It allows other entities, large entities, to participate in the project without becoming part of UAMPS. And it also is an LLC which protects UAMPS as an organization from some of the liabilities that could come along down the road. So a lot of work's been done. Those two things are in place. We also have an agreement for, it's a pending agreement, but it restructured new scale and floors involvement. So we would get 100% cost reimbursement on this next phase. And so I feel really good about where we're at as far as the risk to the project. I think there's still a lot of work that needs to, everybody knows that there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. It's not without risk, but our risk is, UAMPS has done a really good job of reducing the risk up front so that when we get to the end or the licensing period, before we spend the big dollars, then we'll know if the project is ready to move forward or not. We're also, as a project committee, setting, we don't have them identified yet, but we've all agreed to set subscription requirements along the way. So over the next 3 years, then we need to see a commitment from the outside entities as we go that the entire project is getting subscribers before we'll move to the next phase. So it's been some healthy discussions. We've been meeting every Thursday pretty much since July. We've had pretty robust conversations and that sort of thing. So let me just tell you what I've done. Because of the internal risk, and nobody knows until October 31st, we're not going to know where everybody landed on their subscription level. A lot of people still have the opportunity to reduce their entitlement share this week. We put this together to cap our exposure, so we would never own more than 1.4% of the project based on our 1,398 kilowatt subscription. So what that does is, right now we expect that will have 126 megawatts of UAMPS participants subscribed. But if the internal subscription drops below 100 megawatts, then this gives us a cap that it says we're in, but basically if we go below the 100 megawatts, then we're out, because we don't want to own more than 1.4% of the entire project. Because that's our risk, is if the subscription drops, let's say, to 60 megawatts, and we're still in at 1,400 kilowatts, then our percent of the project would increase. And then I think we're kind of in a bad situation where there's not enough interest within UAMPS to move forward. And so what this does is it caps it says, yeah, we're in the project, but we're going to cap it at 1.4% ownership. Just to hedge, just to make sure that we're not putting ourselves at risk. So the total dollar amount would be just under $200,000 if we got to that scenario where we own 1.4%. The next budget period is $13.2 million for the next 3 years. So there's a lot to cover and a lot of details, I know that, but wherever you're, I'll try my best to field whatever questions that you may have. I know some of us are more familiar with the project than others, and our comfort levels are different. I'll just say personally, as I look at where base load power is going to come from, I think the industry is pretty short-sighted, and the demand is definitely out there. It's just a matter of over the next 4 or 5 years, I think we'll start to see people subscribing for ownership in the project.
Maybe before questions, Gary, would you have anything to add to that?
No, I think the way Ty's doing it, the way he has couched the resolution, we met with Mason, which is their attorney, on the phone, and we went over what Ty had suggested, which is tying it to their participation share, which would be 1.4%, is a good way of doing it. It kind of caps our commitment at this point. In the future, we do have an opportunity to increase that as we come up to other off ramps or other in the future. But for right now, I think it's a wise thing to just cap it where it's at, so that as you've got people that want to participate or don't want to participate, that settles down, and we remain the same, and we have a cap. We have a known percentage interest in it that is not going to be adjusted and not going to be changed. I think that was kind of the intent, wasn't it, Ty? That's what you rather than the dollar commitment, right?
Yep. So just for perspective, coming into this period, the off ramp or the entitlement share period, we were at 0.86% ownership. So there's still some buffer there, but as I looked at kind of the total subscription internally, I think if we go below 100 megawatts, then there's just not enough interest. I don't think. I mean, some people probably still want to move forward, and there are some people that are committed no matter what. When we talk about it, their city's all for it. This is their, they're all in no matter what, because they need the power so bad. And this represents, a fourth of our overall power demand. And so it's a very comfortable place to be. It would be really nice to replace our base load, but at some point, if there's not a lot of interest, we're too small to carry a project like this. Or, we need a couple of the larger entities to carry the load. So that's why we have it kind of structured this way.
The original idea of the resolution was that it would allow for flexibility without having to continually come back and ask for increases or decreases And what's nice about the way that Ty with Mason has put this together is that that's not going to happen. So if people drop out, our share will not increase. Our share of responsibility will not increase beyond the 1.4%, which is the cap that Ty selected. Otherwise, there was a possibility that if you lost, 2 or 3 of the individuals, the participants, that the way that the resolution was originally written, our share responsibility could have gone up as those participants left. And so this is a much better way of doing it, is to put the actual number and percentage in there that we're willing to move up to. So I thought if you're going to continue forward with this, which it looks like the details that Ty just shared, it looks like it is moving forward in a positive direction. This is a good resolution to be able to do that with.
Any further questions or clarifications?
So Ty, I have a question. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard that this is going to come in at $55. Is that correct? That's a guarantee, or how, I mean, is that the number that I'm hearing?
Yeah, so that's the target number. So what it is UAMPS has an agreement with NewScale that says your technology, they say, we'll be able to do this, we'll do these reactors, and your power is going to come in at 5.5 cents, which is a really good, that's better than what we do wind energy right now. And so our agreement is okay, we're going to keep running these economic competitive tests with all the scenarios. So as we get new information, the DOE agreement is part of that. All the capital costs have been estimated, but things will keep changing. The terms of financing will change. But if any point the competitive test says, oh, now the cost is at 6 cents or 7 cents, then we have an opportunity to withdraw from the project and get reimbursed, because it's called an ETC failure or ECT failure, economic competitive test failure. So going in, our agreement with developing this project was based on a target price for the power in, I think, 2018 dollars. So they will adjust for inflation, by the time the project comes on, but in today's dollars, they're talking about 5.5. The thing is that there's different levels of economic competitive tests, because the information starts to get nailed down, right? Like once the site plan gets put together, developed, and the things get permitted along the way, the capital costs get identified, then it gets a little more certain as you go, because there's just a lot of variables out there. So they call them different class cost estimates. So this takes us to what they call a class 3 cost estimate. So that's our target number, is to stay under 5.5. So they ran one, they use an independent entity to do that the other day, and they're in the 4.5 cent range right now. I think it was 4.4 was what the projected cost for the power is. But again, it's really early to base everything on that. But that's the target number, is 5.5 cents.
So if it goes higher than that, you have the opportunity to bail. Yep. Without any costs incurred.
Yep. So if we decide to bail on the project because of lack of subscription, or because for political reasons, then we'll owe whatever it is that we've spent up to that point. So this next phase would cost us up to about $200,000. The other thing is we have $162,000 on the books at UAMPS currently. So if we ever do have to cough up the money because the project just falls apart and we've already committed, then we have $162,000 from our other projects that would offset that cost for us. So that's a little less risky. And
So there's,
the financing, so if the project does move forward, everything that we've committed to just gets financed into the project. And we don't actually pay what we've obligated. It just, that's how much our 1% of the total project cost us. And then that comes out in the price of power because it gets financed into the whole project.
so our risk, I want to be clear on this. So our risk is $200,000 if the wheels come off, correct?
Yeah.
If it falls apart, we're into
It's
200,000.
Like 185,000. So it depends on what percent we end up owning.
But moving forward, do we pay anything else out of pocket now moving forward, or does everything moving forward get paid out of rate?
Yeah, everything gets included in the project, correct? Just like any other project, it takes a bunch of capital that gets financed into the project. And then as that debt service gets paid from an operating plant, then that gets calculated into our price for power.
And if it looks ugly in the future where they can say, look, it's going to cost, 7 cents, 8 cents, something like that. At that point, we have the ability to say, we're done without any cost considerations.
Yep.
Or without any
Yep.
payment. Okay.
Sure. Unless we're totally into the project. So if we all decide to stay in the project, meaning the project management committee, if we say, okay, now the price is 6.5 cents, but we're okay with that because 10 years from now, everything's gone totally haywire. We have the option to stay in. It's just that we have a way out if it's ugly. So it's not a guarantee we're going to get 5.5 cents, and no project pays what it promises. It's totally contingent on operational costs and the power demand for the day. It's just, it's just a cost estimate as close as you can get.
So I'll ask one more question, then I'll shut up. So Ty and Gary, what's our risk moving forward? Did I just talk about it?
From my view, it's pretty low for the potential to have ownership in base load power for 5.5 cents. So if you said, well, let's develop our own, and that's what I spent, I don't know if you remember, but I pulled the brakes on this when I first started and went to work on maybe we could do something ourselves. There's no way I could do a project for $200,000. And that's our problem, right? Like we could do, I don't know, we could say, well, we're going to do a generator for natural gas. It's going to cost us $8 million, $6 million, or whatever it is. And then we still have to pay for the fuel. So our price for power would be way higher than just participating in a project like this. We're just too small to have our own standalone project.
Ty, for the council's sake, what is the next off-ramp that the next opportunity? Because there are different off-ramps. This is, I think, the third, isn't it, that we're going through right now? And then there's a fourth. The next off-ramp would be what?
Yeah, so it's basically at the end of the class 3 cost estimate, and it's kind of the middle of the licensing. So it means that we've already applied for our operating license. So right now, everything would be permitted, or by the end of this next 3-year period, we would have passed all of the licensing process that they're going through right now, and we're applying for actually operating the facility. So we would know where we were at in that process to actually make it an operating facility. And right now we're still getting the technology approved. So big jump from where we're at now. The other phases that we've been in were really exploratory and getting the partners together, getting the concept off the ground, getting the land permitted and that sort of thing. And so I would mention with the LLC that we've created, that LLC will also hire an entity that's a person that's been through the process before on the nuclear side, because we don't have the expertise within UAMPS to move the project to the next level. So it's, I think we're just less risky every day.
I'd have a few questions.
Okay.
The 1.4% deal that you struck, or that we've struck with UAMPS, is that unique to us, or is that for every participant?
No, that's us. That's us just saying we're in the project, but we're setting our own cap to our involvement. So without that cap, we could say, you know, we want 1,500 kilowatts of the project. And what we're saying at that point is we're in no matter what happens at 1,500. So if the rest of UAMP subscription drops clear down to 60 megawatts, we're still in at 1,500 because we haven't given ourselves an out, which means now we're starting to own more of the project, plus our cost for that 1,500, or, you know, our cost exposure has also increased past the 200,000. So it's just
Right.
a line in the sand where we've just done this ourselves. It's up to us to say, here's our parameters. We're comfortable with this moving forward.
Oh, so this is internal. This isn't UAMP saying at the point that we drop below this 100 megawatts of subscription, you can jump out. We'd have to wait until the next off ramp before we could jump out.
Yep.
Okay, and then we would just do that just on our own accord.
Right. But after July, so what happens is at October 31st, then they evaluate where everybody's subscription levels are. And then they have a period between there and November 9th for people to decide if they're comfortable with where they're at. And if they're not comfortable based on the subscription, they have to convene another special meeting with their council, and they can withdraw at that point. What I've done is I've just put, we're in it and our cap is there. So after October 31st, if there's only 90 megawatts subscribed, then we're out and we don't come back to the meeting. We kind of let the project dictate. So I've kind of tried to put a cap on our comfort level internally to, so it kind of automatically withdraws us, and that's what I would recommend. I think it's great, but I also think, you know, at some point, if UAMPS as a membership is struggling to get 100 megawatts of commitment, then we're just going to be spending the next 3 years, you know.
Yes, struggling,
if you want to put it that way. Yeah. So.
Remind me, what was our original subscription?
Original was 1,500 kilowatts. And then when we rejoined, we did 1,000 kilowatts of base. And then there was this jump module that this resolution also says that's no longer, that 398 is no longer there. So it leaves us with a 1398 as our subscription. So our first subscription was 1,500 and now we're at 1398.
You say
so
we dropped
for interest, yeah. So the 1398 is based on our current base load need to replace our coal power plants that are coming offline. So I anticipate our need's going to be more than that, but I don't want to speculate either, right? The demand for power is going to go up. I'm just trying to replace our base load, and then we can still do some maybe solar or something like that along the way.
So our resolution, our act today, is not increasing our subscription that we had a month ago.
Right, it's the same. So in section 1A, it says right there, we're just approved maintaining our entitlement share of exactly where we were at. Okay. And then the next one just says, except for we're going to put a cap of ownership. So if we were interested in increasing to 1,500, then the math is really easy. You just say it's 1,500 and then our cap of ownership is 1.5%. Because it's based on we're in the exact same position. It's just that,
Mhm. So we're saying right now the 1.398 or whatever it happened to be would be our maximum. The 1.14.
that's how much we want. And then our maximum ownership is 1.4. So we can increase the kilowatts later. It's just, I just thought we'd just leave it exactly where we were at.
Okay. Let's rewind a little bit. Here 60 days ago, there was quite a bit of noise in media. We heard from the Taxpayers Association about all the evils and ills of nuclear power, et cetera, et cetera. It was about that same time that two of the significant subscribers elected to take the off-ramp. We also didn't have the agreement from UDOT, not UDOT,
DOE,
DOE,
Department of Energy.
Yeah, too many acronyms. UDOT wouldn't appreciate that, would they? So now DOE comes along and says, yeah, we're willing to pitch in and help reduce the risk. And if I understand it right, that 1.3 helps. It doesn't guarantee, but it goes a long ways in saying we can get this 5.5 cent figure that we probably couldn't do before without the help. Is there any noise that those two subscribers would want back in now that, because they made their decision, remember, before the DOE came along?
Yeah, I can't speak for why they were out, but they were out of the project regardless. And their subscription level based on their own portfolio. Like I talked to one of them or I've talked to all of them, but I've talked to one of them just to say what's going on. And they say, well, we have this other resource that we're part of that we're not pulling power from that right now, but we have ownership here in a source that we can pull from. We also can generate our own power. And then some of it was just, like you said, I don't know how much of that had to do with taxpayer association involvement and elected officials. But everybody has to look at their own portfolio, their own energy needs, and then the size of their overall utility. But I don't think, so the DOE's had the commitment from the beginning. They've always been involved. They've always said, yes, this is something that we want to support. Before they did it through this jump module, which gave them actual ownership of one of the reactors.
Well, they backed away from that though, right?
Which I like, right? Some people are like, well, now we're not going to get this really cheap power because they're going to pay for one of the reactors all by themselves and then hand it over to us, which I don't want to operate a facility jointly with the federal government. So I'd rather have the commitment up front to develop the project. So they've always been a partner. I don't think it was that big a deal for them. I think the people that, like me personally, when we're in I'm just not comfortable moving forward without the actual agreement signed on their part. And that's what we accomplished by waiting and pushing it down the road. But I don't think that changed the scenario for the ones that withdrew and what their resources are for power. And I think some of them actually looked at it and they said, yeah, and if the facility goes, then we can just buy in, at the end of the project, which is true. They're just not going to get the same terms that the original group, the earlier subscribers, are going to be giving themselves a discount on the capital costs.
How does UAMPS feel, or the project committee, with these two leaving? And again, they were fairly significant. And I remember at the same time, there was only one other small, I think out in Nevada or someplace, subscriber that wanted to come on. By losing those and not a lot of potential out there of new subscription, how does that affect the overall project? And at what point does UAMP say, we just can't get the subscriptions, it's not going to?
So that's kind of why I based it on the 100 megawatts. Some of them that pulled out didn't really, like, for some of them, they're like, well, we're committed no matter what. This is our only this is our best estimate. Some of them just love the project altogether, you know, for base load. And recognizing where all of the policies are going, carbon free.
Right.
So it reduced the total subscription, you know, by probably 30 megawatts between the ones that pulled out. But at the time we were subscribed at like 214 megawatts. Okay. But what happened was prior to the jump module, subscription was lower. When the jump module became an option, everybody said, that's going to be really cheap power because we don't have to pay for any of those capital costs. The DOE's can operate it for research for a couple years and then just give it to us. And then that's essentially, you know, that module's just, and subscriptions went way up. Ours stayed the same. I think a lot of people speculated on, well, yeah, we want more of that 3-cent power or whatever the number was going to be. So I think subscription went artificially high because of that jump module. And then when DOE changed it, I think that's what kind of set a lot of people off is, well, they wanted them to own the jump module. And for me, it was the opposite. I like the idea that they bring money to the table, help the project develop, but we're not going to be operating. I can't even imagine what that's like to operate, you know, as co-owners with the federal government in a private project, just to be honest. So it's a lot cleaner for us, but it hasn't really changed the tone. People aren't dropping out of the project because other people have dropped out. People are in the project because they're evaluating their own circumstance, their own risk level, and what their future looks like for their own city. So
nonetheless, the more subscribers, the better the project, and the more, the more opportunity to spread risk and costs. Maybe that's a better way to put it.
Yep.
You say they've got about 3 years. They're going to work on additional subscribers for you. You mentioned a term of 3 years. Is that what was going on there?
That's kind of the time frame of this next budget. The budget and plan of finance kind of takes us, to the next.
Next level.
Yeah.
Well, then, so let's suppose that 3 years go by and we've got just everybody evaluates where they're at and we're all comfortable with where we're at, but no one else has come on board. What does the project look like then? Does it continue to move forward? I mean, is there enough subscription right now, even at the less than two, just, right around the 200, is there enough to make it work?
No. Yeah. So the project would really be in jeopardy at the end of three or 4 years. I can't remember the exact cutoff date anymore. And that's probably the most risk to the project, more so than the internal, how many UAMPS members are involved. I view it as the risk is, how do we get to 600 megawatt subscription level?
Right.
And that's going to require some, some large entities with the big power needs to come on board.
I guess the potential's there that we go the next 3 years. And again, just assuming that nobody drops out, but nobody comes on, we're probably looking at committing $200,000 to the project. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. This phase. Yeah. So it's relatively low risk. I think it's worth waiting to see. I think it's premature to withdraw based on other people subscribing in the, Northwest or, I don't know, but California could be buying a lot of it just based on their own policies. It's hard to say. I mean, that's.
Well, and if things go in the right direction and permitting and budgeting and all of that starts to click, you may get some more interest in the outside entities, i.e. the Californians and Midwest or whoever else is looking at it.
Yep. So, go ahead.
I mean, I've felt all along that there's plenty of risk. I mean, we all recognize that. In fact, enough that it's a project that couldn't stand on its own, and hence at the 5.5 cents, hence the government's chipping in to bring it down to that. And that's not unlike our current. What's the project that's coming online? Is it in Georgia? Was it Volker, something like that? They've already got 2 of the big units, and they're adding a 3rd one, but that happened because of a guarantee that was in place that they had to draw on in order for it, because of additional risk, in order for it to happen. So recognizing the risk, and there's the unknowns and the costs, and fair enough, the Taxpayer Association, they make a lot of noise, but they bring up some points. Enough risk that, in my mind, and I said it earlier, that I think it boils down to what can we afford to lose. And I'm not, saying that in a funny sense, just in a literal sense. If we took a chance and it didn't work, are we still okay? And I think we are in that, from the way you've managed that. Well done, by the way. I think that's a good way to approach it.
Yeah, and thank you. I'd like to also just clarify, DOE's involvement isn't to make sure that we have 5.5 cent energy. DOE wants to see the small nuclear reactor technology developed to see if it's viable, because just they would like to see the 2nd, 3rd, 4th deployment if we can prove out the technology and have a successful operating plant, because that helps a lot of the energy need in other countries. Or instead of doing the big massive, all or none, these are self-cooling. They can be shipped from one site. The reactors themselves can be trucked in and assembled instead of 100% constructed on site. So there's a lot of future energy benefits from their involvement in getting this first project off the ground.
Sure.
So
Yeah, at the same time, I think it's fair to say that goes a long way in getting to your 5.5 cents. If that 1.3 billion were there, it would not be a viable consideration.
Yep, it wouldn't even work. But the same's happening on our other projects, because without the subsidies, then solar and wind isn't even close to viable.
There you go.
So they're just interested in energy development and these carbon-free sources that
which when the day is done, that's the way it should be. That's where the risk should lie, is on that level, so that we can all benefit from it. It's spread over the costs of every taxpayer in the United States. I think that's all I have for the moment. Thank you.
Further questions or thoughts or input?
I've got a real quick question. This is going to be an easy one. Let's just keep it simple. What's the timing on this, Ty? Like years? We talking 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? Just real quick. When would we look at this thing coming online?
2027, I think, was the start of the. So that was what I remember from earlier. So I don't know where we're at as far as that process, and I don't think that can really be nailed down, but I think we're looking at 2030.
Okay, that's fair enough. The reason I asked that question is because I've been doing a little bit of research into solar, some of the other things that are out there, and we're just not there with that technology. I mean, as you talk about the base load, I've thought a lot about that too, but it's one of those things, we got to cover our base load. We don't want to have those rolling brownouts that some of our other neighboring states have. And so, if you try to see into the future, I think that's, you say, how do we cover our base load? Well, we don't have the technology there with some of our other means to do that. Unfortunately, solar is getting there, but I don't think we're going to be there within maybe 7 years to cover that base load. I think it would be a great supplement in the future. But also, to your point, is, if we try to go solar and try to get our Tesla batteries in there, we sure the heck would be spending more than $200,000 to do that project. And so
to me, I mean, if we just sit and try to analyze this and say, hey, we want to go to some other source of power, like you said, you made a great point. Well, I don't think we'd be able to do that with our smallest entity, being able to reach that. So, it just boils down to me with a little bit about timing, That's why I asked that question. So, good job on that time too.
Well, and just to let you know, we're already affected by the California brownouts. So August was horrible. Our market exposure caused our rate to go to 8.2 cents for the month, right? And we sell for 10 cents. Typically we buy at 4 cents. We average about 4 cents. And just because of that 1 month, it offset all of the power markets. We're all connected, right? And all of the decisions that some of these other places are doing, and when they say, well, we're going to just shut down because this fire is going, or we can't handle, and that's really what happened in California, is they couldn't handle the demand through the solar that they've already put in, so they had to shut down to protect the system, and it just sends a shockwave through all the markets. So even though we're not directly connected, we're already experiencing that, and this just gives us some stability to draw from. So,
any further questions or thoughts?
Gary, you ready for a legal question? Bring it on.
Bring it on.
Yeah, section 2, just of the resolution, the effective date. The resolution shall be and remain irrepealable. What effect does that have when we say it's irrepealable?
Well, after we've completed our commitment and November 1st comes along, we are locked in to making that $200,000 contribution. If we at that point, there's no reversing, no pulling out. That doesn't mean there's not another off ramp, because there is another off ramp, but it means it takes us to the next point, and it's not repealable. You can't.
In other words, Tony can't say I changed my mind.
No.
Fair enough.
Can't wave the reconsideration flag. So.
Yeah.
You could say that, but it would take a full vote to matter. I'm just kidding, Tony.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Then in that resolution, if we're to that point, the mayor pointed out there's in section 1, part C, there doesn't need to be an II. That doesn't reference anything. And then the next one where it says section 2B, that should actually be section 1A or 1B, sorry. 1B. So
how did I miss
just so
that?
you know that it was a test. And since we figured you were done, then I thought, well, let's go change it back now since Dave didn't catch it. So.
Oh, man. It must have been late at night.
Dave, one in for the mayor. So
yeah, it must have been late at night. Ray, your thoughts on the resolution?
Who was that?
Yeah, what were your thoughts on the resolution?
I guess at this point, my thought is I think we need to proceed with it. I don't see anything else really coming. People are going to keep working on solar, are going to keep working on wind. They are. The last 3 or 4 years, I thought maybe something else has come along. It just hasn't done. So I don't see anything else that's going to take the base load. Down the road, will they come up with? I thought last 2 or 3 years, maybe they'll affect batteries to the point where batteries will be okay, but I'm not seeing that happen.
Yeah.
To the point where it would take the full load. I think we need to proceed. I guess the question in my mind is, and one thought, as we look at power use, last time we discussed this, we talked about, are we going to need more power in the future, less power? We kicked around the idea that, well, things get more efficient, so maybe we won't need as much. But yet people are using more and more things. Last meeting, I think it was maybe Eric that mentioned, do we need to jump that to 1,500? and 1.5%. We can still do that if you think, that's still within reason if you want to try and put it at that point. I think we probably need to proceed with my input. My input would be with the question, do you see it? Do you see in the future power going down because of other sources, or do you see it going down because people are going to have more efficient uses, enough to lower your power usage, or do you see with new development, new subdivisions, with potentially industrial people potentially come in, you see that our power needs may increase? That's my other question, I guess, tonight is, do you want to accept it as it is, or do you want to increase that 1398 to 1500 at 1.4 to 1.5? That's just my thought.
That was along my same thought process. I'm still where I was 3-4 months ago. I'd like to have my power on. We've got to have power somewhere, and right now I think the risk is going to meet the reward, and we can handle it if it doesn't go under. And I think we need to proceed forward and ride this out and see where it takes.
Get fair, but let's everybody chip in. Jeff, what are your thoughts on? Go ahead, unmute yourself. There you go.
Yeah, I'm all for it. We need the power, and I say we go to the next step, ride it out of ways.
Okay. Tony, your thoughts? Unmute yourself. Tony, you're muted.
Well, Todd made a good point earlier when he said that if we look at some, perhaps pursuing something else like solar panels, wind power, the cost is going to be significantly higher than $200,000. So I guess my feeling is it's worth the risk. I think that's a good way of looking at it. It's not going to sink us if it all goes south and we lose $200,000. Nobody wants to do that, but it's not going to hurt us that much or be that detrimental to the city, I don't think. But and hopefully it all works out well. And of course, if it does, then we have that base load in the future. So I think at this point, I would probably feel that it would be prudent to move ahead with it.
Eric, what are your thoughts?
I agree with everybody. I think it's worth the risk of moving on. I really do. I don't see another option available to us, to be quite honest with you, for our baseload power.
Yeah.
Keep it simple. That's what I think.
David?
I'd be in favor of maintaining our current position, but would be against increasing it.
Okay. Would you want, and that's, I guess, just choice, keep it where it's at now, or increase it from the 1398 to 1500, or leave it where it's at? Those are a couple of choices. With that, if anybody's ready, you need to discuss that, or I'll entertain a motion, whatever direction you want to go. Again, your 5 choice would be to adopt this as it is, which would lock us in the 1.4 and 1398. Their option would be to totally bail out of the project. Another option would be to increase or decrease the amount. So I'll entertain a motion at some point from someone.
Mayor, I'd move to approve resolution 2028 authorizing and approving adjustment of the participants' entitlement share under the carbon-free power project power sales contract for the remaining first phase licensing period for the carbon-free power project and related matters. That's a mouthful, Gary.
And Dave, with those changes that was discussed a minute ago on the,
Would you add, yes, would you amend those two changes?
Which were,
Mayor,
Item 1C, the very end of that,
oh, okay,
delete the double I and change the 2B to 1B.
okay,
as proposed.
Very-
Go ahead, Gary.
let me just looking at 1C, there is a little I as well, little single I. You see that? So either you need to take that little single I out,
Yep. Thank you, Gary. Thank you.
or you need to, or you can take both of them. You can take both of them out or leave them both in. Does that make sense?
If they're appropriate, we can leave them in.
Yeah, they're appropriate. Yeah.
Okay, maybe we should leave, we need to leave them in.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, appreciate it. So
Yeah.
David, would you add to your motion to change 2B to say 1B? Change the 2 to number 2 to number 1. At the end of section 1C.
Okay, so moved that 2B would be changed to the end of section 1C,
Change to say 1B.
to 1B. We'll get it.
Okay, Tony, would you accept that as an amendment?
yeah, and with
Second
that,
that.
I will second the motion.
Okay. Motion by David, second by Tony, we adopt resolution 20-28, a resolution authorizing and approving adjustments of the participants' entitlement share in the carbon-free power project power sales contract for the remaining first phase of the licensing period for the carbon-free power project and related matters, with one change being changing number 2 to number 1 at the end of section 1C. Any further discussion on the motion? Any further amendments? Or ready to vote? Further discussion, anybody? Okay, see no, proceed to vote. Again, we have to go by roll call. We'll go backwards. David, you raise your hand and say aye. David, Jeffrey,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
and Tony.
Aye.
Okay, motion passed unanimously. Okay, thank you. Again, if you have other thoughts, other questions, other input, please get a hold of time, pass them on. Sometimes we think about something afterwards and let it mull around. Please get the information back to Ty. Okay, next item is, I'll turn this next one over to Tony. It's conditional acceptance of Mahogany Ridge Subdivision Phase 4 and 5. Totally part of planning. That's kind of where that comes from. So Tony, will you discuss number 5 for us?
Sure, yeah. Brent Slater, our engineer and city staff, they've completed the inspection of Mahogany Subdivision 4 and 5. It is their, in accordance with the engineering and subdivision plans that have been submitted and previously approved. They recommend conditional acceptance of this subdivision and to start the guarantee period. Then it goes on to say there's $90,377.27 that remains in the escrow account that represents the 10% guarantee. There's $18,019.68 that remains in the escrow account that represents money to cover the placement of seal coat next summer. There's $1,000 that remain in the escrow account that represents money to complete the final inspections next year at the end of the guarantee period. So there would be a total of $109,396.95 left in escrow to cover these costs. And as I understand it, once we approve of this, that guarantee period starts, and that guarantee period lasts 1 year. So guys, 1 year from now, we'll be looking at final approval, final acceptance of this subdivision. But this is just the conditional acceptance.
Any discussion or questions on that? Okay, looks like the release amount is probably about $102,089. be the release amount. There's no further discussion. I'll entertain a motion on that item.
Mayor,
Tony,
I'll make a motion that we grant conditional acceptance to the Mahogany Ridge subdivision phases 4 and 5, as I just described.
is there a second?
I'll second that, Mayor.
Motion by Tony, second by Jeffrey, that we grant conditional acceptance on Mahogany Ridge subdivision phase 4 and 5. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, proceed to vote. Okay, Jeff,
Aye.
Tony,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Jeffrey,
Aye.
and David.
Aye.
Okay, motion passed unanimously. Okay, thank you. Number 4, item number 6. Tony, will you take that one also?
Here, this is the.
Hey,
this is the-
Mayor, do I need to excuse myself or just mute myself or what here? Gary, you're muted.
This is your subdivision, isn't it?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. So, Denise, can you just put him in the waiting room?
Yeah.
Or he can mute himself and we can see him watch him walk out the door into his other room.
Then you can text me when you're done. I'm gonna go eat my dinner.
It'd probably be easiest just to put him in the waiting room.
If you can do that, that's fine.
I can do that. So see you in a minute. I'll put you in the virtual hallway.
There you go.
Okay, he's gone.
Thanks.
Okay, go ahead, Tony.
Okay, yeah, this is the Turner subdivision down on the Island Road. Again, Jones and Associates, Brent Slater, they've completed the inspection of the improvements in the above mentioned subdivision, found them to be completed satisfactorily and to meet the minimum requirements of Morgan City standards in accordance with engineering and or subdivision plans submitted and previously approved. So they recommend final acceptance of this subdivision. I was a little confused on the second page, but the mayor sort of helped me out on this.
Denise did.
Denise did. Thank you, Denise, for where it says less the $2,000 conditional acceptance, which was released on October the 28th, 2020. Actually, that release was on November the 14th of 2019. So that is why there is only the $250 to be released in this final acceptance.
Sorry for the confusion.
Oh, you're great. We appreciate your help. Not a problem. Okay, any questions on that or further discussion?
So Ray, this one was probably before my time. Just curious as to how many lot subdivision it is.
If I memorize the 3 lot subdivision, I think they build on 2 of them.
And how large are the lots?
They're fairly good size. They're right straight across the street from where Eric lives.
Okay.
They're about 3/4 of an acre. One is it's a horse property.
Okay.
So I think they're like about 3/4 of an acre.
You say they're building on 2 of the 3.
2 of them built on.
2 have been built on.
Great, thank you.
No problem. Any other questions or entertain a motion?
Mayor,
Tony,
I will make a motion that we grant final acceptance of the Turner subdivision as was just described.
is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Tony, second by David. Do we grant final acceptance to the Turner subdivision has been described? Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, see no one, proceed to vote. Okay, David,
Aye.
Jeffrey,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
and Tony.
Aye.
Okay, motion passed unanimously. Again, appreciate your thoughts on that. It's good to have some of those things taken care of. Okay, let me let Eric back in the meeting. And then we'll turn the time over to Ty now for some updates.
Okay, So our first update is we had passed that letter of understanding with the Secondary Water Users Association, and after we did that, they had some wording changes that their attorney would like us to include. And so, Gary, if you want to.
Thank you. So I apologize again. This is, you remember the endless song in scouting? You know, this is the endless LOU.
So it's not over yet. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's almost there. Let me just put it that way. But there was in paragraph 7, this is not a major issue. Otherwise, I would have brought it back to you for reapproval, you know, under a new resolution, but it's a minor issue. Paragraph 7, if I can find it here, indicated that, hang on just a second, I'm getting back to where I was.
Gary, do you want me to share my screen?
Yes, would you mind? That would be great.
I think it's the one that you had sent Denise, if it's the same. I'll share what I have and see if that's correct or not. So
yeah.
Hi, I sent you an email with just, that's the one.
Okay.
That's it.
That's it. Yep. So just a couple of words changed, but they're significant. And thanks to the mayor looking through this, we were able to add to it. John sent me almost the same night that we approved this. He sent me an email that I missed, but he called me the next day and indicated that, asked me whether I'd gotten this in there, but it says, if the city believes that this agreement is contrary to a new statutory or regulatory provision, so if the state law changes or something happens, we have to do something. And it says it will notify the company in writing. And then it says upon receipt of said notice, and it used to say that the company may terminate the agreement. And the mayor recommended that we put in a provision that says the city or the company may elect to renegotiate or terminate this agreement. So now it's balanced. Both of us, either one of us, if the law totally changes and prohibits this agreement from happening, then either one of us may require the renegotiation of the agreement or the termination of the agreement. And so that seemed fair. I got a call from John just before this meeting began, and he will now take this copy himself down to the Secondary Water Company and make sure they sign it. So if you would approve that, it doesn't require formal approval, but if I've got your agreement that I can go ahead and just make that small change, it really is not a major substantive change. So I didn't think we should bring it back to you as a new resolution, if that's okay.
Gary, why would a statute or a regulation change? What would be an example of that changing?
So that's a good question. Recently, the state has begun to mandate our conservation levels in every single in water law. And by mandating our conservation levels, they have mandated essentially that we take less water and use less water.
Mm-hmm.
Now, right now it's a recommendation. It's not a state law. But if they were to put that into state law and we were to require more than that through the secondary water process, then that would be an excessive exaction, and an excessive exaction could get us into liability trouble. We could be liable for asking for more than what their fair share of water contribution would be. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So right now, though, our agreement is within the recommendations. Are we within those parameters?
We are. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're okay right now. And my job next year at the legislature is to make sure it doesn't become law.
Gotcha.
Because it's set by the Division of Water Resources, DWR. And they're not always that they're more scientists than they are practical farmers. And so we're very cautious of that. We're going to guard that carefully.
Yeah, there's probably a faction that would like to see it become law, I would expect.
Yes.
Okay.
But it's got to be realistic as well.
Sure. I mean, that's back to the exaction principle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Take that down, Ty. Okay, so I guess with that, a nod or a raise a hand. If anybody opposed to that, raise your hand. If not, we'll just let Gary and Ty make that change. Are we okay with that? Not a head hand. Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Ty, next item.
Okay, so last Thursday, I think it was, we found out that we're receiving the third tranche of CARES Act funding. We've already received the first two tranches, and they weren't sure exactly how they were going to divide out the third. We're going to get $112,432. So it's just down about 10,000, about 14,000 from what the other two tranches were. So our total funding for CARES Act will be $365,086. We have been asked from the county if we would be interested in helping them purchase an ambulance dedicated to helping transport COVID patients, or if they transport a COVID patient, that the other one doesn't get taken out of service. I think they're moving forward without us. They were just asked to see if the city would be interested in that. So far, we have the first two tranches either spent or obligated. I can go through that if you'd like to see where that's at. I sent everybody an email where I responded to the newspaper. And so hopefully that gives you the detail. I did that just in case you get any questions. So if there's an article in the newspaper about what we've been spending the money on, that kind of breaks it down in that email, and I can go into more detail, if you're interested. But really, we've been working really well on efficiencies, remote working, and we still have work to do, so we can do more things online, like a developer software, so we can track building permits, do inspections on software based instead of handwritten, more forms online so you can apply for and pay for licenses online and business. We are connecting not all, but most of our city facilities, so our substations, our wells, our sewer lagoons, all of those are getting fiber run to them, so we can implement SCADA type systems and control them remotely and monitor them. So if like our water guy or water person is out with COVID, then they would still be able to log in and monitor our well levels, our tank levels, and operate pumps and valves remotely, which is a huge plus for us, since we only have a department of 1 or 2 people in our department. Same with the power. They'd be able to be at one place where there's an outage, go onto their laptop and operate the substation without having to drive back and forth. So that's what we've really focused on, is just limiting our contact with each other and our contact with the public. And then the impact that if somebody does get COVID internally, that we don't shut the whole place down. We can still continue forward. So that's where we're at. So we have about $100,000 left to talk about. Do any of you have priorities or something you would like to see the city do, or any adjustments to what we've been working on so far?
I mean, is a contribution to an ambulance a consideration?
It could be. I just don't like, personally, I'm not sure I like the idea of, we've been trying to clear the lines between county and city and not have joint ownership or joint custody. Like I think it's probably a good use of funds, but I'm not sure that the county actually needs the funds in order to make that happen. So just so you know, the county's level of funding is 1.7 million countywide. And so I don't know exactly what their circumstances. They've done a lot of things that we haven't done, like they've done grants to some of our local businesses, and they've given some money to the school district, which has been really beneficial. They've helped us with some supplies, some masks and some sanitation things. They've helped us with a fogger machine. So they've been really helpful. I don't think it's a matter of like they can't get the ambulance if we don't contribute. I think they just wanted to check with us to make sure we didn't leave money on the table. I don't think we're in that situation.
Okay.
It's not very difficult. You know, the next $100,000 I think could be used taking advantage of, we've got the fiber lines ordered, right? But if we actually add SCADA to one of our systems, that would take it would be a next step, but I don't have any problem spending another $100,000 in that same effort. I'll just put it that way. We don't have SCADA on our, we only have it on our water system at this point. So
I guess that was one of my questions, is if you can't spend it, what do you do with the excess? But I guess we're moot there, huh?
yeah, I'm plus or minus, we have more needs than we've ever been able to pay for at a normal tax funds anyway. So
given time, huh?
yeah, so we're putting it to beneficial use. I think it's things that will benefit the city into the future, make us more streamlined. You know, the short-term benefit is that distancing and being able to do more with less people in remote locations. And so we're just moving that direction. I think one of the things I've also proposed is that we retrofit the council chambers so that when we do meet back in person, we can continue to stream our meetings live. We've already set that precedence, but right now we're working off of computers, but actually having the camera and recording audio, all of that connected, you know, so we can broadcast from that room, I think is another good use of the next round of funding. So
Get a high definition camera for Gary.
Hey, I'll weigh in on this, Ty. I mean, first of all, ex-ambulance guy for a lot of years, I don't feel comfortable with this contributing to that. I mean, I think the county should be doing that. We pay them an awful lot of money every year to have that service. So, and then my next thought is, as an ex-SCADA guy that used to sell that and do that for a living, I think you're headed down the right road with that. I mean, the more we can make it efficient, the more we can have our guys have that ability to run our systems remotely, the better off we'll be. I've always said doing SCADA that the more information you have, the better off you are. And I just feel that way, even on the power side, even on the water side, even on the sewer side. That'll take us into the next level. I really believe that. So my thoughts are continue headed down the road you are, Ty, and just keep her going. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things we can learn through this COVID, and that's one of them, is making us more efficient. So I really feel that the road you're headed down is the right one, Ty, so keep her going.
okay, appreciate that. Okay, any other comments on COVID? I didn't do another count or anything like that. Everybody knows we're at the high risk level. I did talk to the health department when the day before that got announced, and we walked through our own procedures, and they said we don't need to make any new adjustments to what we're doing. We're pretty on top of it with the way we're operating as a city. And so a lot of that has to do with your support as a council. And it was interesting. It wasn't very long ago, I think we were all thinking, hey, should we all meet again back together? And now the tables are turned, and we're clear on the other end, where now it's really taking off. And I'm glad that your willingness to take it serious has been very good. So next item, we've had a lot of struggles with food trucks. Food trucks come, and we don't necessarily have the ability to regulate them. What we do is instead of calling it a business license, we still make them check with us, and we make them show that they have their tax ID, their health department, their fire inspection, and then they come to town, and we've tried to do that just to keep track of where the food trucks are, and it's just becoming more and more difficult. To be honest, it falls all on me. So if somebody doesn't come through, I get the call. I'm supposed to go run out and chase down this food truck, and the problem is it's always on a Saturday or a Friday night. And really, I don't know that it's that big of a problem like it might have been before. So I'm just asking if you're okay if we stop regulating food trucks. The amount of money that Stephanie and I both spend on trying to follow, kind of the protocols we put in place. They're not necessarily ordinances. It's all just in our fee schedule. I just think, we charge them $60 for the whole year, and I spend more time on that just trying to chase them down. And then at the end, what do I say? If I show up, it's like, well, that's a health department, that's a fire inspection, or that's a tax ID. None of those are within the city's purview anyway. So I feel like they're fairly well regulated. I'm not nervous about having an explosion of food trucks. I think if we don't regulate them and they all show up on the same, what they're going to find out is there's not enough market to operate 4 of them on any one given weekend, and they'll be self-regulating, I think, based on interest and demand. That's just my
self-limiting. Yeah, self-limiting.
Yep, self-limiting. Yep. That's kind of my take on it. It's been nice for Tractor Supply. I think Napa, they've done this to draw some foot traffic, which is great. But I think food trucks have to make enough money to make it worth their trip up here. And so I'm not really scared of having an explosion of food trucks. They still are restricted to the same zones where you allow restaurants. So they're not currently allowed in residential areas or anything like that. But it's just our process.
Wouldn't there be some enforcement of that? I mean, if suppose they were in an area that they shouldn't be, is the city still involved? Is that right?
Yeah, it's still code enforcement. It's just we're not requiring them to come to the city prior to and fill out our application to prove that they're all a legitimate food truck beforehand. So
how would that differ then from, say, a door-to-door salesman? Don't we want to know who's doing that?
Yeah, so they're required to come in and so there's a discrepancy. So solicitors know that you have to get a solicitor's license. That's few and far between, but the food trucks aren't regulated by every city. The state legislatures passed enough restrictions on how we regulate them that they're used to just operating and showing up to whatever city. And then ours is kind of a outlier where they're like, well, we already have all of our permits. Like, what more do you want? Well, this is a city one. And so some of them are a little confused by why we're trying to regulate them when the other cities, most of the rest of the cities are not. So it's just a lot of exercise in futility. And it's like everything else. The ones that try and do it legitimately go through a big process. And then the ones that don't ask, they show up, and we usually don't get around to doing anything about it. So it's
Gary,
anyway,
what does Layton do?
We don't regulate them. What we are allowed to do is we are allowed to have our fire inspectors go on board if they suspect that there may be some difficult, just to check the connections to the butane tanks and that type of thing. But as far as I think it was 2 years ago, the legislature changed the law to prohibit any type of, if they've got a business in one place, they don't need it in every place. They just need it in that one place. And so that's essentially what they've done. And so our law is probably just a little bit about 2 years behind in that we charge for it, which we don't.
So
It's very kind of dedicated. 2 years ago, they made some changes to the legislature. Before that, each city had to we were supposed to regulate them before they came in. And since the state made that change, they're pretty well regulated and have their licensing where their home base is. So I think Gary's correct, and we just haven't changed our protocol or procedure since then.
So where we're in kind of an outlying area, any any regulatory oversight, may or may not know that they're here. I mean, it's a potential there that they could be working without a health permit or without a registration. And is there a concern there?
Some of them may be, but if they're caught doing that, the penalties are pretty severe. So most of them don't do that. And the interesting thing about the food trucks is they're kind of self-regulating, because if one sees another one that is not regulated, he will report that other one. And they've made a commitment to the folks on the Hill that they would do that, and they've done a pretty good job of policing themselves. So
gotcha. That's interesting.
They just served a lot of lunches in that 45 days. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
We had every type of food you could ever imagine. Fish and chips.
Yeah.
Navajo tacos, you name it. So.
Wow. What do you need to do? I mean, what do we need to do, Ty, to not pursue that then? I mean, just
let me know that it's okay for us to not or to abandon that in the enforcement side, the fee schedule. So we don't have it by ordinance. It's just part of our fee schedule that we're currently charging. I can bring something more formal back. I think I just wanted to introduce it to the council to see where you're at. I'm over time, I'm just trying also to be a little bit more streamlined, a little bit more business friendly. And when I get into a situation where we're spinning our wheels, I mean, we have a pretty robust fee schedule, but we're really not interested in, our budget's not supported by, a $60 food truck fee. It's right. Like people are like, why do I have to pay for my dog license? And we're not supporting the whole city on dog licenses, but most of that's an awareness of where you're at and how many you have. It's so anyway, that's just a new one on food trucks. And I think the tone from the city was different a couple years ago before I got here on food trucks. I think there was a lot of concern about protecting our local brick and mortar restaurants and that sort of thing. But I think those days have kind of passed, and I think we're
and I'm not sure it's our business to get involved in competitive forces or
they can figure that out. Sure.
Yep.
So
any other direction put on that for Ty?
You need a head nod on that, Ty?
Yeah, that'd be good.
Thumbs up, head nod, yes, no. Okay, all right, thank you.
Then when COVID first started, we decided to postpone late fees on our accounts. So we wouldn't charge people late fees if they were on their accounts. And then we also decided not to do shutoffs. So we haven't been doing shutoffs since COVID started, and we hadn't seen an increase at all in people getting behind or delinquent on their accounts. Everything was pretty much status quo until just a little bit recent. And because we haven't been doing shut-off notices, we've just done reminders for your bills, then we have had people not even just contact us. It's starting to become a problem. And so I'd like to see if you're okay if we reinstate the shut-off notice process that we had before, and the fees. If people, our normal process is we do a door we say you're going to be shut off if you don't call us or make arrangements. Doesn't necessarily mean we shut them off, but sometimes shutting them off is that indicator that gets people to respond to the city and make arrangements. And as long as we're willing to work with people, so it's not like we're trying to be hard about this. I think that over the months, with just getting little reminders instead of the shut off notice, is a kind of now starting to work against us a little bit. I think we could still look at it case by case, that if someone's impacted by COVID and we know that that's what it is, that's different than we've just kind of foregone the whole fee. So we haven't collected about $600 is the average a month of fees that we haven't assessed on delinquent accounts. So it's not a huge dollar amount, but it's also an indicator that people aren't, one, getting shut off, and two, their fees aren't compounding. So it's kind of just creating a bad trend where I don't want to see people get so far behind they can't keep up on their utility bills. So anyway, because that, I just thought I'd bring that up. I think we talked about that informally when COVID started, and so I just thought I'd bring it back to see how you would like to see us proceed.
So, Ty, it seemed like when we did talk about it, and you're correct, it's when it all started, there was a feeling amongst just public, community, and I think government that services wouldn't be shut off because of the COVID in general. And so that feeling, we just all fell into the idea that we won't turn things off, but everybody was doing it. Do you think that that's other municipalities, other districts are similarly situated where they're starting to charge now? I mean, starting to shut off now?
Yeah, and there were some that never did stop. I think some just waited to see how it played out. I think people wanted to make sure that we were supportive, but I think what most everybody figured out is it's such an individual case, and even when you have COVID, most people have the ability to work from home, and really the impact on like our unemployment spiked, when it first started, and it's come clear back to like 3.8% unemployment again. And so I think most people have said, well, that scares over, and really it's like job loss. It's still a case by case, but it's not as widespread as we anticipated. So I think most people are just back to normal procedures.
Stimulus money was made available subsequently to help with those sorts of things. That as we first discussed it, I don't remember that being known at the time. But I mean, I like your idea of if there were truly a COVID related event, we consider it and maybe talk about it.
Yeah. And yeah, we worked through that, but so
I can see your concern that someone that otherwise should be paying isn't, just because they're not getting the message.
Yeah, and in a lot of ways, we do them a disservice by not staying up on our part of it, and then they get so far behind, it's legal action or
hard to catch.
Yeah. Hey, Ty.
Yeah.
I have 2 thumbs up over here for me.
Okay. Glad you still have both your thumbs.
Stephanie, I think does a great job working with people. If anybody calls in, her soft, mother heart takes over, and she helps people. If they'll call in, make arrangements, she's just so good to work with people. I talked to her today, and there hasn't been anybody that's been a COVID related situation. It's been people. It's not been unemployment. People get behind and just don't think and don't pay. I guess I would like to consider to go back where we were back in February, March before this change. Several years ago, I don't know if Tony remembers or not, several years ago, we had people that were owing $6,000, $8,000, $9,000. One business owed $10,000 because we never followed up with them. And for that, somebody get that far behind just because they don't get around to paying it, and we let them, we don't push them, that's detrimental for their own personal finances. We had to work through all those. We had people down pretty good. Right now, the 17th is the date, and this month we still have 7 sitting out there that haven't contacted Stephanie, haven't referred to her, haven't given her any information, haven't worked out a plan or anything. And so people are just usually not getting around to it. So I guess I would like to just go back where we were back in February, March, with the concept that Stephanie does work with anybody that has a legitimate situation in need. If they'll talk to her, work out a plan, she'll work with them. I think that will still be intact as long as she's part of the program.
I'll
Other questions,
agree with
thoughts?
that, Mayor. Let's go back and hold people's feet to the fire, but we can be compassionate and help if they'll.
Anybody else? Thoughts, questions?
No,
I
I'm the same
agree with-
way.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. If, you know, if we truly do have a hardship due to COVID, then, Ty mentioned, you know, we'd look at it as a case by case basis. And I think that works well. As long as we have that option. So I'm in favor of it as well as returning to the policy.
Okay,
I am too. I'm in favor of it.
all right. Thank
And
you.
I might just mention, we did have, early on, we did have somebody that was impacted by COVID. They were self-employed, kind of in a consulting business, so they weren't eligible for the payroll, you know, the unemployment. They were just kind of really stuck, and they let us know before they even got delinquent. Just said, hey, just so you know, I lost my job and I've got to figure out something, but I'm not going to be able to pay. And when we worked with them, we actually hired them to work for the city, you know, on a part-time basis. And that didn't last long because of the amount that we pay. They went right back to, they figured something out. And I mean, I think they appreciated the little stopgap, but you know, that's just an example of how everything is a case by case, you know, scenario. So, I think I brought up last time, or I think our meeting was canceled, but Jamie Grand Prix took a job in Tooele. So his last day was last Friday. So we did have a job open to recruit for his replacement, and based on the applicant pool, it was better to divide the departments into two. And so what I've done is I've promoted Chad Kramer. He was our water guy, to the supervisor over water. And Cale Watkins is now the supervisor over sewer. So instead of having all of the administrative duties under one person, now they're divided into two, and they can do their own reporting requirements and budget issues and ordering and that sort of thing. And then we're going to underfill. So now we have two jobs open, a full-time person in water and a half-time person or part-time person in sewer. And so we've just made that move. I think Jamie did a really good job, but I think we also had a pretty heavy burden on the administrative duties of both departments. There's a lot of reporting requirements and that sort of thing. And so this will, I think, give us a structure where our supervisor can also be out doing a lot more work. And then, you know, maybe some of that administrative burden, I'll pick up some of that as far as signing contracts and helping them with the bidding processes and stuff like that in the short term while they come up to speed. And I just wanted to let you know that's kind of where we're at. So
Do both supervisors have the certifications they need to complete their tasks? Okay.
Yep.
Good.
So Kel has all of the certifications, but he doesn't have the time in the position long enough, and so he's petitioned the state to see if they would not just grant him the permission. And then if that doesn't work out with the state, then Chad does have the certifications in both water and sewer that he can also be the he's certified as the operator. We would prefer that Kel's allowed to just operate the sewer independent of Chad, so that he can be accountable for how that operates. But we do, between them, we do have the certifications. It's just Kel's just got his certification so fast. There's a waiting period of, before he's granted unrestricted licensing.
Okay, good.
Any other?
Is it part what brought this change on too is we put out for Jamie's job, there wasn't applicants out there that sent them in. So that's why Ty made the choice to go a different direction because there just wasn't applicants that were able, willing, could, want to, certified, whatever you want to call it. Just wasn't anybody applying.
Wow.
Well, and most of that is because you have people that either come through a water system or a sewer system. There's not very many people that run both. And so what he did for the city is kind of a narrow field. And actually where Jamie went to in Tooele is just sewer. He won't be doing water because they have separate departments. And so I think that's also one of the things is people looked at it and said, I don't want to be responsible for two different departments, where right now I'm only the, operator in one. So I think that might have had something to do with it. So with that, our sewer lagoons, if you remember in our budget process, we talked about getting diffusers. So replacing all of those those floating aerators that are costing us a grundle of money and not very effective. So that project got put together and we put it out for bid on Monday to start getting proposals for the diffusers at the sewer lagoons. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. Just a calendar item. I can't remember if we put this out or not, but our Christmas luncheon is we scheduled that for December 18th at noon. So if you'd like to write that down, if you remember, we typically on that day close the office early. It's a Friday, but it's our city council and our employees that meet together. And we've scheduled that at Ruby River. We missed our summer get together. And so we'd like to do something maybe a little bit nicer. And I also wanted to really commend the staff on that week of the windstorm and all of the efforts that we put. So right now that's where it's scheduled. We'll see what COVID does. They have an upper room where they said they could handle us and give us the social distancing required, and it's in December, and so we'll just have to see how that goes, but at least pencil that in. I'd like to, if they can accommodate it, I'd like to have the council and a +1, spouse or kid, and then all of the employees also, if they can bring one person, maybe expand a little bit. But I know a lot of what everybody's been through this year is because of spouse support, and where we didn't have the summer party with the whole families. I'd like to do something a little bit more nice and casual. So
good approach.
Okay. Then just an update on the 100 North water project. I think we're ready to pave. All the connections have been made. Everything was prepped. We did have an insurance claim today because there's lack of signage. So the road got cut and prepped, but on all of the side roads, there's nothing that says drop off or road closed or slow down. And somebody hit the 4-inch lip in their car and had some significant damage this morning. I think they even had their car towed, but I think the signage is now in place. We contacted Chad, we weren't aware that it was all prepped and significant, road cuts there because it's prepared for the pavement, but just lack of signage. And so the road's open, it just, we needed more signage. And so hopefully we'll be wrapping that up if it warms up enough to pave. Got to get the pavement down before it turns again. I think that's all of the updates I have. Unless I'm forgetting something, Denise, if you're still awake. Mayor.
Well, Denise, of this entire thing, and anything from the council, any updates from the council?
I guess I just have one question, Mayor. What is the city's role? What are we doing for this Saturday, Halloween? Just closing our eyes and hope people have.
So the health department put out a notice to all the businesses. They contacted us before it went to high, and we got to explain to them that nobody's in charge of that event. That's why it works so well. there's there's no, yeah, it's spontaneous. And it's the same question with Halloween, right? Are you going to cancel Halloween? Well, who's in charge of that, right? It's like, as long as we're still Americans, I think the freaks will all come out. So
Yeah.
the nice thing is that most people already have a mask on because it is Halloween. But anyway, they just put a letter out to the businesses encouraging the masks wearing if they're going to be handing out candy, and then it's a case by case, right? So if the businesses still want to participate, they can. If they don't, they just shut their doors. And if you're a resident that is scared or you're compromised, or you're not comfortable, then just don't show up. Nobody's obligated to come. And the county asked us too, because it's kind of funny. It's like, well, I think you better do traffic control because nobody's permitted it before, but just because people are crossing State Street like crazy, then so, and I think in the newspaper they were going to put out a list of the businesses that are participating, just so people already kind of know if they're inclined to do so.
They did that.
Okay. Good.
The other day,
So that's all I know. It's not our deal. So
the other day at school, I asked the secretary, I says, in years past, you've been no mask allowed for Halloween. What do you want me to do this year?
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody's a potential COVID person for Halloween.
Yep.
Any other questions or inputs? Tony?
Mayor, who is responsible for the tree removal from the river? The trees that have fallen into the river?
So that's us.
County. Yeah.
It's us in the county. We just don't have the equipment. The water's low now, so we do have some time to be honest. I was waiting to see if we qualified if the state gets declared. So we've done all of our preliminary damage assessments with emergency management. If it gets declared, it's a no-brainer. We just contract all that work out because it's all reimbursable, 100% if you contract it out. And then if not, we're going to have to partner with the county, and they don't even necessarily have the right equipment, to do that effectively. So
Is that where we could use some of that COVID money?
no, there's no risk to.
It's a separate. That's another grant for the
Well,
so
yeah. So COVID, it has to be an impact of COVID or to reduce the spread of COVID. So the trees in the river are flood potential, but
Okay.
it's not a eligible,
That's okay.
right.
The county does have a flood fund, and that's where it comes from. The county is responsible for the trees in the river and the flood prevention type thing. So the county will take a look at that. I suspect it will be under the guise of Brett Hunter, the road guy, plus some of the county council members, and possibly their emergency management person, possibly Austin. Among them, they'll need to look at that. Yeah, from now till spring, while the water's low, is the time to get those removed. And yes, Tony, there's a bunch of them. There's several big trees that are in the river.
Don't we have a line on them on a property tax that has something to do with flood, or am I?
Yes, everybody pays on your property tax. You pay a line item for flood, you notice, on your property tax. And that goes in the fund. The county has that fund.
That would be an expense that would qualify, I would think. Out of that flood fund would be tree removal out of the river. So
Yeah, we've talked about it. We just don't have any solid plans with the county about actually getting that work done. So, but now's a good time to talk about it.
Good question. Anything else, Tony?
no.
And David,
No, sir.
Eric.
No, you already answered my question. I've had a lot of my neighbors asking about 100 North, but you already answered my questions on that. I've had a lot of calls on that lately.
Okay, we're about there.
Okay.
Okay, Jeffrey, anything else?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, Jeff, thoughts from you? Other questions or?
Nope.
Okay, all right. Ty, did you and Denise decide whether you had anything else or not? Denise says, no, you don't.
Yeah. If I remember something, I'll email it maybe.
Okay. All right, let's
Did
move
you
to
look
item
at your
number 8.
handwritten notes?
What's that?
Did you look at your handwritten notes after I changed out your packet? You had another sheet of paper with,
Yeah,
Oh, so that's my problem. I've got handwritten notes all over my desk for all kinds of things. So
okay,
Just
we'll go.
keep
We'll go
buried.
next
anything
time
on my,
on your,
anything on my board?
next time on your agenda is item number 8. We need to go into a closed session. So I need someone to make a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, move to go into closed session for discussion of character, professional competence, and physical and medical health of an individual. Motion by Jeff, second by, I missed that. Who seconded it?
I did, Mayor.
Okay, Jeffrey. Okay. Any discussion? Liz? Okay. All those in favor going to closed session, raise your hand. Okay. Anybody opposed? Okay, motion passed. We're now going to close session. We need to take just a few minutes until Denise gets the tapes changed, things shut off. If you're gonna